There comes a moment in every journey worth taking when even the bravest soul begins to tremble, when the road you once walked with certainty begins to blur beneath your feet. You've fought too long, sacrificed too much, and now you stand here, weary, questioning whether it was all worth it. But listen carefully. This is not the time to surrender, because what you're facing now, this final stretch, this last battle, is the very reason you were chosen in the first place. The chosen are never picked for their perfection. They are chosen for their persistence. You are not here by accident. You are here because the fire that burns inside you refuses to go out no matter how many storms try to drown it. So breathe, straighten your shoulders and remember who you are, because this is your last battle, and victory is waiting for the one who refuses to give up now. There comes a point in every story where even the bravest heart begins to falter, where the light that once burned so brightly seems to flicker in the wind. You may look around and find yourself surrounded by shadows so thick that even hope feels like a distant memory. Every step forward feels heavier than the last, and you begin to wonder if perhaps the journey has taken too much from you, if perhaps you were never meant to make it to the end. But here is the truth, the kind that time and history whisper to those who listen closely. Every great story has its darkest chapter. The darkness is not the end, it is the passage. It is the space between who you were and who you are meant to become. Without it, the story would be incomplete. The darkest chapter is where the hero is tested beyond the limits of endurance, where faith is stripped down to its rawest form, and where courage must be chosen, not once, but again and again, even when the heart trembles. You see, no one escapes the night. Not the dreamers, not the fighters, not even the ones who seem to have everything figured out. Every person who has ever achieved anything meaningful has walked through their own night of fear and uncertainty. The scientist staring at endless failed experiments, the artist doubting their gift after rejection, the parent wondering if their love is enough to hold the family together. All of them, in their own way, face their dark chapter. It is the quiet, invisible battle that shapes the soul more deeply than any moment of triumph ever could. Think for a moment of Thomas Edison, who was told repeatedly that his attempts to create light were foolish, impossible even. He failed over 1,000 times before he succeeded. Can you imagine what his darkest chapter felt like? To be surrounded by broken glass and burnt filaments, mocked by peers, dismissed by experts, haunted by self-doubt. But he pressed on, not because he was certain of success, but because he refused to believe that failure was the final word. That's the thing about darkness. It convinces you that it's permanent, but it never is. It's a test of endurance, not an eternal sentence. Or think of Nelson Mandela, locked away in a prison cell for 27 years. The walls around him were meant to break his spirit, to convince him that his dream of freedom was naive. But in that darkness, he found clarity. He found strength. He learned that even when everything is taken from you, your integrity and purpose cannot be stolen unless you surrender them willingly. When he finally walked free, he didn't emerge bitter or broken. He emerged transformed. His darkest chapter became the very foundation of his light. And so, if you are in your own shadowed chapter right now, do not mistake it for the end. You may be standing in the middle of the story's greatest tension, the part where everything feels uncertain, where the future is hidden behind fog and fear. But this is the moment that defines you, not the easy days when everything falls into place, but these days when you must keep walking without seeing where the path leads. It is in the dark that character is revealed, when no one is watching, when there's no applause, when there are no guarantees. It is then that you discover what truly drives you. Some people quit here. They turn back, unable to bear the silence of the night. But those who endure, those who whisper to themselves, just one more step, they emerge with something unbreakable inside them. They emerge not only with victory, but with wisdom, empathy, and the quiet confidence of someone who has seen the storm and survived it. Think of a seed buried beneath the earth. From above, it looks like nothing is happening. It is hidden, pressed down by the weight of soil, swallowed by darkness. Yet, in that unseen place, life is forming. Roots are stretching downward, preparing for the moment the stem will rise. The darkness is not a tomb, it is a womb. And the pain you feel now, the uncertainty, the loss, is not your ending, it is your becoming. The struggle is the birthplace of strength. Every person you admire has lived this truth. The writer staring at a blank page, the athlete training before dawn, the teacher facing another day of trying to reach hearts that seem closed. None of them are strangers to doubt. What separates them is not the absence of darkness, but the refusal to surrender to it. They learn to walk through it, to hold their faith like a lantern, even when it flickers. Sometimes the darkest chapter is not caused by failure, but by waiting for an answer, waiting for healing, waiting for the next door to open. Patience, though rarely glamorous, is one of the truest forms of courage. To wait without losing hope, to trust the unseen, to keep tending to your dreams even when there are no signs of progress. That is a kind of bravery. The world does not celebrate enough. There will be moments when your own mind becomes your enemy, when the whispers of doubt grow louder than the voice of purpose. In those moments, remember that courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means choosing to move forward despite it. The people who change the world are not the ones who never feel afraid. They are the ones who act anyway. They are the ones who look at the darkness and say, you do not get to decide my ending. The night will pass. It always does. The sun has never failed to rise, not once in all of human history. And when it does, you will understand why the darkness had to come first. You will see that it carved something within you, a depth of compassion, a resilience of spirit, a faith that cannot be shaken. The truth is, light means nothing without the night to contrast it. Triumph means nothing without the taste of struggle. If life were a constant stream of comfort and success, we would never grow, never evolve, never learn what we're truly capable of. The beauty of every great story lies not in its perfection, but in its perseverance. The hero does not become great because the journey was easy, but because they refused to give up when it was hardest to go on. So if you are standing in your darkest chapter now, take heart. The pages are still turning. You have not reached the end. You are still being written into something magnificent, something powerful, something enduring. The darkness you are walking through now will one day be the very reason someone else finds their courage. You will become proof that pain can lead to purpose, that despair can birth destiny, that even the longest night gives way to morning. Hold on, keep walking. Trust the story, even when you cannot see the next page. Every great story has its darkest chapter, but that's only because it's preparing for the light that follows. There are moments in life when you feel the weight of everything you've ever carried pressing down on your shoulders. It's as if the world itself has decided that you must be the one to hold it together while everyone else stands by, unaware of the invisible battle raging within you. You smile when you want to cry. You stand when your knees ache to buckle. And you tell yourself that maybe this is just what you were meant for, to carry, to endure, to fight. Yet there's a quiet ache that whispers, why me? Why must I always be the one who bears the burden, who stands firm while others falter? But perhaps the truth is this: to be chosen is never about being lucky. It is about being entrusted. Being chosen doesn't mean you were the easiest or most convenient option. It means that life, in its infinite wisdom, saw something in you that even you might not see in yourself. It saw strength wrapped in uncertainty, courage buried beneath doubt, resilience forged through past wounds. It saw the kind of heart that could withstand the storm, even when that storm seemed merciless. The burden of the chosen is heavy precisely because it carries purpose. Purpose that cannot be entrusted to just anyone. There is a strange loneliness that comes with being chosen. You may look around and find that no one truly understands the depth of what you're facing. People see the surface, your calmness, your grace, your quiet endurance, but not the sleepless nights, the silent fears, the unspoken prayers. They see your light, but not the fire that forged it. They celebrate your strength, but cannot comprehend the cost. And yet, despite this solitude, you continue, not because it's easy, but because something deep inside you refuses to let go. Every person who has ever changed the world has felt this weight. Think of those who dared to dream in times of despair, who spoke truth when silence was safer, who chose compassion when cruelty was easier. Malala Yousafzai was just a young girl when she defied an entire system that tried to silence her. She didn't ask to become a symbol of courage or a voice for millions of silenced girls. Life chose her, and when she stood before the world, scarred but unbroken, her burden became her purpose, a flame that lit the darkness for countless others. The truth is, purpose and pain are rarely found apart. The heavier the calling, the greater the struggle that comes with it. Life has a way of testing the ones it trusts most. It pushes them, bends them, strips them of comfort and certainty until they are left with nothing but their core, their true, unshakable essence. It's not cruelty, it's refinement. Diamonds are only formed under pressure, and stars only shine in darkness. You may be walking through a season where everything feels like too much, where you were stretched between responsibilities, expectations, and your own quiet exhaustion. You tell yourself to keep going, even when you don't know how. You wake up each morning and wear strength like a mask, even when your soul feels threadbare. But this burden, though heavy, is not meaningless. There is a reason you were chosen to carry it, because through your struggles, something sacred is being shaped. There are people who will one day find strength in your story, people who will watch you rise from what should have broken you. And in that rising, they'll find permission to believe they can rise too. You may not see it now, but the courage you show in these unseen moments will ripple far beyond you. The burdens you carry are not merely for your own transformation. They are the soil in which hope will grow for others. And yet to carry this kind of purpose means to constantly wrestle with doubt. There will be days when you question whether you're strong enough, wise enough, capable enough. Days when you feel invisible, forgotten, unappreciated. It's in those moments that the burden feels the heaviest, not because of what you must do, but because of what you must become in order to do it. To be chosen is not simply to fulfill a task, it is to evolve into someone worthy of the calling. And that process is never comfortable. Think of the teacher who keeps showing up for students who've stopped believing in themselves. Think of the single parent working 2 jobs to build a life their child will one day be proud of. Think of the nurse who holds the hands of strangers in their final moments. None of them ask for the weight they carry, yet they carry it all the same. These are not ordinary lives. They are the lives of the chosen. They live with purpose disguised as responsibility, with greatness hidden behind everyday sacrifice. Sometimes the burden of the chosen is not visible to the world because it doesn't look glamorous. It doesn't come with applause or recognition. It comes with quiet perseverance, with sleepless nights, with decisions that no one will ever thank you for making. But the absence of applause doesn't mean the absence of purpose. Often, the most meaningful battles are fought in silence, in the heart, in the mind, in the hidden spaces where no one else sees. When you feel the weight pressing too hard, remember this, even the strongest hearts need rest. To carry purpose does not mean to carry it alone. You are not failing when you pause. You are simply gathering the strength to continue. Even the chosen must remember that they too are human, allowed to weep, to stumble, to fall. What defines them is not the absence of weakness, but the will to rise again after each fall. There is beauty in this struggle, though you may not see it yet. The very weight that feels unbearable today will one day become your strength. The lessons carved into your soul by hardship will become wisdom that no one can take away. You will look back and realize that every tear, every scar, every sleepless night was building something within you, something unshakable. To be chosen is to live with both pain and purpose intertwined. It means carrying a torch through the storm, not because you want to, but because you must. It means believing in the light even when your hands are trembling. It means understanding that your story, the one you're living right now, messy and uncertain and difficult, is shaping a future you can't yet see. One day you'll meet someone standing where you once stood, weary, unsure, burdened by their own calling. You'll see in them the same fear you once felt. And in that moment, you'll understand why you had to go through all that you did, You'll speak with the authority of someone who has walked through fire and lived to tell the tale. You'll offer hope, not from theory, but from truth, because you'll know deeply, undeniably, that the burden of the chosen is heavy, yes, but never without purpose. So when the nights grow long and the weight feels unbearable, don't let the pain fool you into thinking it's pointless. The universe doesn't choose carelessly. You were chosen because something in you can bear it, transform it, and turn it into light. That light will guide others even long after your burden has lifted. And that is the quiet miracle of being chosen. There comes a moment in every journey when the path that once felt clear begins to blur, when everything you thought you knew about yourself is tested in ways you could never have imagined. It is the moment you've secretly dreaded, the final battle, the point where the comfort of preparation fades, and all that remains is who you truly are beneath the surface. No more masks, no more rehearsed bravery, just you, your fears, your choices, and the truth that has been quietly shaping you all along. The final battle doesn't always come with swords and trumpets. Sometimes it comes as a quiet struggle inside your own heart. The decision to keep going when you want to give up, the courage to speak when your voice trembles, the strength to forgive when bitterness feels easier. It's that invisible confrontation between the person you were and the person you've become. And no matter how ordinary your life may seem, every one of us eventually faces this reckoning. When you first began your journey, you might have carried dreams as bright as morning light. You believed that passion alone would be enough, that hard work would lead you in a straight line to success. But life has a way of teaching us that the road is never straight. Along the way, you stumbled, you were disappointed. You learned that not everyone you love will stay, that not every effort will be rewarded, and that not every question will be answered. And yet you kept walking. That's what most people forget. The simple act of continuing is itself a kind of victory. The final battle comes when you are stripped of illusion, when every easy answer has dissolved. It asks you not who you were when you started, but who you are now. What did the struggle make of you? Did it harden your heart, or did it teach you compassion? Did you learn patience in the waiting, or did you let the waiting turn to bitterness? These are the questions the battle whispers, and only your actions, not your intentions, can answer them. There's a quiet power in reaching that moment, because the final battle is not about defeating something outside you. It's about mastering what's within. The doubt that tells you you're not enough, the fear that whispers you'll fail again, the anger that burns every time you remember what you've lost. These are the real enemies, and they don't go down with a single victory. They require persistence, forgiveness, and the courage to keep showing up, even when you feel unworthy of the fight. Think of the person who has been through heartbreak, but chooses to love again anyway. Think of the one who failed spectacularly, yet still finds the courage to try once more. Think of the parent who works tirelessly despite exhaustion, the student who studies even when no one believes in them, the dreamer who refuses to surrender their vision despite endless setbacks. Each of them is fighting their final battle in their own way, and with every small act of courage, they are revealing who they've become. The final battle is where the noise of the world fades and you can finally hear your own voice. The one that's been drowned out by expectations and fear. It's there that you realize all the mistakes, all the heartbreak, all the detours you resented were never wasted. They were carving depth into your soul, teaching you the difference between wanting to be strong and actually being strong. Strength doesn't come from never falling. It comes from rising again after each fall, carrying the lessons in your hands like armor. There was once a young soldier who spent years preparing for war. He trained his body to endure pain and his mind to follow orders. But when the day finally came and he stood on the battlefield, he realized that all the training in the world could not teach him how to choose mercy. The true test wasn't in how fiercely he fought, but in how wisely he used his strength. That's what the final battle does. It reveals that greatness has less to do with winning and more to do with how you fight, with what you protect and with what you refuse to destroy, even in your own pain. Perhaps your final battle isn't one of conflict, but of endurance. The choice to stay kind in a world that rewards cruelty, to stay honest in a time that praises deceit, to hold on to faith when everything you see suggests there's no reason to. Maybe your battle is simply to keep believing in goodness, in yourself, in tomorrow. Don't underestimate how brave that is. Sometimes the quiet warriors are the ones who change the world most profoundly, simply by refusing to become what tried to break them. And yet, the final battle can be lonely. There will be moments when no one will understand what you're facing, when it feels like you're standing alone against the tide. But even then, you are not empty-handed. You carry the lessons of every struggle that came before, every scar that taught you how to heal, every moment of failure that revealed a deeper truth. The person standing here now, weary but wiser, bruised but unbroken, is not the same person who began the journey. That in itself is the quiet triumph of your story. When you finally reach that moment, when you realize that no one is coming to save you, that it's up to you to rise, you will discover something extraordinary. The battle was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to unveil you. It was meant to show you that you were never powerless, never unworthy, never without choice. Every hardship that once felt like punishment was, in truth, a shaping, a way of preparing you for the day when you would stand face to face with your own strength. The final battle is not a single event, but a culmination, the meeting point between who you were and who you have grown to be. And when you stand there, trembling but unyielding, you will realize that victory isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply the quiet whisper, "I made it through." And in that whisper, the whole world changes. Hope is often spoken of as if it was something fragile, something that drifts in and out of our lives like sunlight through the clouds, a fleeting emotion that visits us when times are good and deserts us when the world grows cold. But real hope, the kind that endures when everything else has fallen apart, is not a feeling at all. It is a discipline. It is the daily, deliberate choice to believe in light even when the sky is black. It is the quiet act of faith that whispers, "I will not give up," even when every reason to continue has vanished. There are days when hope feels impossible, when the weight of disappointment presses so heavily on your chest that you can barely breathe, when loss steals not only what you loved, but the belief that you'll ever love again, when the world seems indifferent to your prayers, your efforts, your pain. On those days, it's easy to imagine that hope is a luxury reserved for the lucky, for those whose paths seem lined with grace. But that is not true. Hope is not the property of the fortunate. It is the weapon of the brave. The ones who choose to rise again when their hearts are still bleeding are the ones who understand what hope truly means. Feelings come and go. They rise and fall like the tide. But discipline, the choice to act with faith, to stand firm in the storm, that is where transformation begins. Hope as a discipline means getting up when the alarm rings, even when you don't know what the day will bring. It means working toward your dream after 100 rejections, showing kindness to people who might never return it, believing in yourself when the world tells you not to. It's not blind optimism, it's stubborn endurance. It's the courage to keep planting seeds, even when the ground looks barren, because you trust that one day something beautiful will break through the soil. Think of the people who have changed history, not through grand gestures, but through quiet persistence. A scientist running endless experiments in the face of failure. A mother holding her child and whispering promises of a better future, though her own heart is weary. A student studying by candlelight, believing that knowledge will open doors even when poverty says otherwise. These are acts of hope, not feelings of inspiration, but disciplines of faith. They are people who understand that hope must be practiced like an art, especially when the world gives you every reason to abandon it. The truth is, hopelessness is seductive. It tells you to rest, to give in, to stop trying, because what's the point? It promises relief from disappointment, but hopelessness steals far more than it spares. It takes away the possibility of joy before joy ever has the chance to arrive. Hope, on the other hand, demands work. It demands that you show up to your life even when it hurts. It asks that you risk believing in something better, knowing full well you might be disappointed again. It's not easy, but neither is anything worth doing. There was once a woman who planted a tree in a field where nothing had grown for years. Her neighbors laughed. They said the soil was too poor, the climate too harsh. But she tended it anyway through storms and drought and countless seasons where it looked like nothing would come of it. And then one spring, a single green leaf appeared. She smiled, not because it proved her right, but because it proved her faith had meaning. Hope is like that. The quiet tending of a dream when no one else believes in its possibility. To live with hope as a discipline means accepting that you will not always feel strong. There will be mornings when fear wakes before you do, when you look in the mirror and see only exhaustion staring back. Hope doesn't erase that. It doesn't promise the absence of struggle. What it offers is a reason to keep going despite the struggle. It turns pain into purpose, uncertainty into potential. When you decide that hope is not something you wait for, but something you practice, you reclaim power over your life. Many people mistake hope for naivety, as though to be hopeful is to ignore the darkness around us. But true hope doesn't deny the darkness. It stares directly into it and refuses to be consumed. It is the strength to say, yes, the world is broken, and yes, I will still try to mend it. It is the student marching for justice, the nurse holding a patient's hand in their final moments, the artist painting joy in a world that has forgotten how to smile. Hope is not denial. It is defiance. It is rebellion against despair. Some days, hope will look like great leaps, a new job, a new beginning, a long-awaited answer to prayer. But most days, it will look small and ordinary. It will look like making the bed, sending the email, saying thank you when gratitude feels distant. It will look like forgiving yourself for not being where you thought you'd be. And those small acts repeated over and over become the rhythm of resilience. There will always be reasons to give up. There will always be storms that make you doubt whether the sun will ever return. But if you hold on to hope, if you make it a practice rather than a passing emotion, you will discover something extraordinary. Hope does not depend on circumstances. It creates them. The moment you decide to believe in better, you begin to build it. So when life feels heavy and your heart feels tired, do not wait for hope to come to you. Practice it, build it, live it. Let it become the steady beat that carries you through the noise of fear and the silence of waiting. Because hope, in the end, is not a feeling to be found. It is a discipline to be lived. And those who master it are the ones who, even in the darkest of nights, find a way to see the dawn. There comes a moment at the end of every chapter when the silence feels heavier than the sound, when something you've poured your heart into, perhaps a dream, a relationship, a season of your life, finally comes to its close. And you find yourself standing in the stillness, wondering what's left of you now that it's over. The world tells us to fear endings, to see them as failures, to mourn what's been lost. But the truth, the kind that reveals itself only when you've walked far enough through pain to understand it, is that the end is not the end. It's the beginning of legacy. Endings have a way of making us feel small. They strip away the familiar and leave us naked before the unknown. You can spend years building something, a career, a home, a purpose, and in a single season it can unravel. It's tempting to believe that all those years meant nothing, that all the effort vanished into the void. But nothing of value ever disappears. The things you create, the lives you touch, the love you give, they ripple outward in ways you may never see. Every choice you make, every kindness you show, every truth you speak becomes a thread in the vast tapestry of legacy. Legacy isn't about statues or fame. It isn't something built on applause or recognition. It lives quietly in the hearts of people whose lives you've changed, sometimes without even realizing it. It's the teacher whose words a child carries into adulthood, the friend who listened when no one else did, the stranger who offered a smile that made someone believe the world wasn't entirely cruel. Legacy is the proof that even when the moment ends, the meaning continues. There's something profoundly human about wanting to leave a mark. We all crave to know that our existence mattered, that our time here wasn't just a passing shadow. But legacy isn't born from grand gestures. It grows from persistence, from staying kind when life makes you bitter, from choosing integrity when deceit would be easier. Every small act of courage you take is a seed. You might not live to see it bloom, but someone else will walk through the garden you planted. That's the beauty of it. You don't need to witness the outcome to know it was worth it. Think of those who came before you, the ones who carried burdens so you wouldn't have to. The mother who worked late so her children could study, the activist who spoke when silence was safer, the craftsman who built something sturdy enough to outlast his own lifetime. None of them knew how far their efforts would reach. They simply did what needed to be done, and through that quiet courage, they left behind something eternal. Their stories remind us that legacy isn't built in a moment. It's shaped in the ordinary, often unseen choices we make every day. And when something you love comes to an end, when the door closes no matter how tightly you try to hold it open, it's easy to feel as though all the meaning has drained away. But what if that ending is simply the handover? What if what you've begun is meant to live beyond you? The dream you fought for might become the foundation someone else builds upon. The lessons you learn through hardship may become the wisdom that saves another from breaking. The love you gave may continue echoing in ways you'll never know. That's the quiet magic of legacy. It outlives your presence, but never your impact. Sometimes the ending of one thing is the only way for something greater to begin. A seed must break to let life emerge. A star must burn out to give birth to new light. We too must learn to see endings not as erasures, but as transformations. The things you lose often make space for what you were always meant to carry. When one chapter closes, it's not a full stop, it's a pause before the next line, a breath before the next beginning. There will be moments when the ache of loss makes it hard to believe in that. When it feels as though your best work, your deepest love, or your truest self has already been spent. But it's in those moments of despair that legacy begins to take shape, because the measure of a person is not in how long they shine, but in how deeply their light reaches. You may think your story has ended, but for someone else, your story is the spark that starts theirs. Legacy is not a monument built after your life. It's a living presence that continues through every heart you've touched. It's the echo of your laughter in someone's memory, the strength another finds in your example, the hope your words plant in a stranger you'll never meet. And perhaps that's the truest form of immortality, to live on not through fame or power, but through the quiet, lasting influence of having loved, served, and persevered. When you reach the end of something, when a dream fades, a relationship ends, or a season closes, stand still for a moment. Mourn what's gone, yes, but then listen closely. The silence isn't empty. It's waiting for you to realize that this isn't the final page. It's the beginning of what will remain. The work of your hands, the courage of your choices, the tenderness of your heart, they continue, rippling outward long after the moment itself has passed. The end is never truly an end. It's a threshold. You step through it carrying everything you've lived, everything you've learned, and everything you've become. And on the other side, your legacy begins to breathe. It will live quietly in others, sometimes in ways you'll never know, sometimes in ways that change the world. That is the quiet, unshakable truth of it all. Nothing done in love, in faith, in courage ever truly ends. It simply becomes the beginning of something that lasts forever. So, chosen one, don't give up now. You have come too far, endured too much, and become too strong to quit on the edge of your victory. The night may be long, but it cannot last forever. The dawn is already on its way, and it's waiting for you to step into it. Raise your head, tighten your grip, and take that one last step, because this is your last battle. And it's the one that will define who you were born to become.